The moment I walked into Meridian, Manhattan's most pretentious restaurant, wearing my janitor's uniform, I knew Lana had planned this. Every detail screamed setup, from the way her friends Miranda, Jade, and Simone were already positioned at the corner table with their phones ready, to how Gavin Wolfe sat there smirking in his $1,000 suit like he owned the place. "Rowan!" Lana's voice carried that fake sweetness she used when she wanted to hurt me most. "Look, everyone, my husband decided to join us straight from work. Isn't that authentic?" The word dripped with venom. I slid into the empty chair, ignoring the stares from other diners. These Tesla wives, as I called them, lived for moments like this. Their husbands made millions while mine cleaned their offices. "Sorry I'm late," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Had to finish mopping the floors where your boyfriend works." Gavin's jaw tightened. He managed portfolios worth more than most people see in lifetimes, but couldn't handle a janitor's sarcasm. "Rowan works so hard," Lana continued, her performance just getting started. 12 hours a day, making sure important people have clean spaces to do important work. Miranda giggled. "That's so noble." "Very blue-collar chic," added Jade, filming with her phone. I'd been married to Lana for 8 years, long enough to recognize when she was building towards something big. The way she kept glancing at Gavin, the nervous energy crackling between them, this wasn't just another humiliation session. "Actually," Lana said, her voice getting louder, "I have an announcement." The restaurant seemed to quiet around us, or maybe that was just my imagination, the way everything slows down when you're about to get hit by a truck. "Gavin and I are in love." She reached across the table, taking his manicured hand in hers. "Real love, not whatever this has been." She gestured dismissively at me. I felt something cold settle in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of being looked down on had taught me to hide my reactions. "I want a divorce, Rowan. I'm tired of pretending we're equals when we're obviously not." The phones were all recording now. This would be on social media within minutes. The janitor getting dumped in public by his social climbing wife. "I see." I pulled out my wallet, counted out exact change for my untouched meal. "Well, congratulations. I hope you'll be very happy together." "That's it?" Lana looked almost disappointed. "No begging? No scene?" I stood up, straightening my uniform shirt. "What would be the point? You've clearly made your choice." I looked directly at Gavin. "Good luck with that, buddy. She's all yours." As I walked toward the exit, I heard Miranda whisper, "God, he's pathetic." "Like a kicked dog," Simone agreed, but I was smiling as I pushed through the restaurant's heavy doors. Let them have their moment. Let them think they'd won. Outside, a black sedan idled at the curb. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a weathered face I recognized, my father's old attorney, Pete Morrison. "Rowan." He handed me a manila envelope, a set of keys, and a burner phone. "Your father wanted you to have these when the time was right." "The time for what?" "Read the documents. Everything's explained." Pete's expression was grim. "He always said you were too good for that woman. Looks like he was right." The sedan pulled away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with my father's final gift. Inside the envelope, the first document made my legs weak. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Property deed, the 40-story office building where I worked as a janitor, I owned it. Had owned it for 3 years, ever since Dad passed. The trust had been managed by his lawyers, generating income I'd never known about. The second document was a detailed financial report. The building was worth $47 million. The third was a letter in my father's handwriting. "Son, if you're reading this, it means someone finally pushed you too far. I built this empire from nothing, but I wanted you to understand the value of honest work first. Now you know what it feels like to be looked down on. Use that knowledge wisely. The building is yours. Do with it what you think is right. Dad." I looked back through Meridian's windows. Lana and her friends were still celebrating, probably already planning the wedding. Gavin was showing off, probably talking about the penthouse he rented in my building. My building. The burner phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Carrick, this is Lenny Rodriguez, head of security at your property. Your father briefed me years ago. I've been waiting for your call." I typed back, "Tomorrow morning. We have work to do." I sent my resignation email at 6 a.m., effective immediately. By 7 a.m., I was back in the building wearing my best suit, one I'd bought for Dad's funeral and never worn since. The security guards looked confused when I walked past their desk without scanning my janitor's badge. "Hey, Rowan," called Tommy from behind the reception desk. "You're not supposed to be here. Didn't you quit? I'm here in a different capacity today. I handed him a business card I'd had printed at an all-night shop. Building management. His confusion deepened, but before he could ask questions, the elevator arrived. Lenny Rodriguez stepped out, a compact man in his 50s with cop eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Carrick? He shook my hand firmly. Been looking forward to this conversation for 3 years. We rode up to the 38th floor, to an office I'd cleaned 1,000 times but never entered as anything other than hired help. Lenny unlocked the door marked Building Operations, Private. Inside was a full security setup, monitors showing every floor, every entrance, every elevator. Financial reports covered one wall, tenant information filled filing cabinets. Your father was thorough, Lenny said. He knew this day would come. What exactly did he tell you? That you'd need help when you were ready to stop being invisible. Lenny pulled up a chair. He had me document everything, every tenant violation, every suspicious activity, every corner cut by management companies. Said you'd know what to do with it when the time came. I studied the monitors. On screen 12, I could see the executive floor where Gavin worked. His corner office had floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Central Park. Tell me about Gavin Wolfe. Lenny's expression hardened. Hedge fund pretty boy. Rents the penthouse, thinks rules don't apply to him. We've had complaints. Noise violations, unauthorized modifications, guests who overstay visitor limits. What kind of guests? The kind who aren't his fiancée. Lenny pulled up a folder thick with photographs. Your wife isn't the only woman he entertains up there. The photos showed Gavin with at least 3 different women over the past month, none of them Lana. He's been cheating on her while she's been cheating on me. I almost laughed. Perfect. There's more. Lenny handed me another file. The restaurant where they humiliated you last night. Meridian. They're behind on their commercial lease payments, 3 months overdue. I flipped through the documents. Meridian owed the building nearly $60,000 in back rent. They're in the ground floor of this building? Your building, Lenny corrected. And according to the lease terms, you can call the debt immediately if they're more than 90 days behind. I checked the dates. They'd hit 91 days yesterday. What else do we know about Meridian? Health department's been looking for an excuse to inspect them. Rumors of violations, but they've been paying off the right people. Lenny's smile was predatory. Of course, if the building owner filed a formal complaint, the inspectors would have to investigate. Immediately. I leaned back in the chair, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Lana was probably planning her new life with Gavin. Probably spending money she expected to get from our divorce. Lenny, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Schedule a comprehensive health and safety inspection for Meridian, today. On what grounds? Tenant complaints about odors, possible pest issues, concerns about food safety. I stood up, straightening my tie. And I want to be there when they shut it down. Lenny was already reaching for his phone. It'll be my pleasure, Mr. Carrick. 2 hours later, I was standing outside Meridian wearing my building owner credentials, watching health inspectors swarm through the restaurant like ants. The lunch crowd had been evacuated. Staff stood on the sidewalk looking confused and angry. Through the window, I could see inspectors finding exactly what Lenny had promised they'd find. Violations serious enough to force immediate closure. My phone rang. Lana. Rowan, what the hell are you doing? I'm sorry, what do you mean? Don't play stupid. Meridian is closed. They're saying the building owner filed complaints. That's terrible news. Where will you and your friends have lunch now? This isn't funny. Miranda was supposed to host her engagement party there next week. Maybe she should have chosen a restaurant that follows health codes. Silence. Then? How do you know about the building owner? Lucky guess. I watched as an inspector emerged with a clipboard full of violations. I have to go, Lana. I have work to do. Wait. I hung up and walked toward the restaurant's entrance. The head inspector, a serious woman named Patricia Chen, looked up as I approached. Mr. Carrick, I have the preliminary report. She handed me a document listing 17 separate violations, from improper food storage to pest infestations to unlicensed alcohol service. How long will they be closed? Minimum 30 days for remediation, possibly longer if they can't prove they've addressed the structural issues. I signed the closure order with a flourish, knowing that somewhere in the city, Lana was watching her perfect world start to crumble. This was just the beginning. Lana's divorce lawyer was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive suit, cheap ethics, and the kind of smile that promised to take everything I owned. His name was Bradley Hoffman, and he specialized in what he called high-conflict marital dissolution. Mr. Carrick, he said, sliding papers across his mahogany desk, my client is prepared to be reasonable. She's not asking for alimony, just her fair share of marital assets. I scanned the documents. Lana wanted half of everything, including half the value of Dad's building, which she somehow knew about now. This is interesting, I said. She wants half of property that was never marital assets. Community property laws don't apply to inherited assets held in trust. I handed the papers back unsigned. Tell your client she can have half of what we actually built together, which is basically nothing. Hoffman's smile faltered. Mr. Carrick, I don't think you understand your position here. Your wife has documentation of your obsessive behavior, following her, harassing her friends, abusing your position to damage her favorite restaurant. My position? I laughed. Bradley, can I call you Bradley? My position is that I own a $47 million building, and your client is married to a janitor who just quit his job. Which one of us do you think has the stronger negotiating position? His face went pale. I think there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Tell Lana if she wants a divorce, she can have one, but she gets nothing except her personal belongings. I stood up, and tell her to enjoy the penthouse while she can. Gavin's lease is up for review next month. I left Hoffman's office and walked 6 blocks to Meridian, which was still closed with health department notices taped to its windows. A small crowd had gathered, mostly Lana's social circle, looking lost without their usual lunch spot. Miranda spotted me first. You! This is your fault somehow, isn't it? I'm not sure what you mean. The restaurant closing. The timing is too convenient. Jade stepped forward, phone already recording. We know you're stalking Lana. This is harassment. I filed legitimate complaints about health code violations. The inspectors found exactly what I reported. I shrugged. If you're looking for someone to blame, maybe talk to the restaurant management about why they had rat droppings in their kitchen. Rat droppings? Simone looked nauseous. We ate there yesterday. I'd get checked by a doctor if I were you. The crowd began to disperse, suddenly less interested in defending their closed restaurant. But Miranda wasn't finished. Lana told us about your little inheritance. Don't think money makes you better than us. You're right, I said. Money doesn't make me better than you, but it does make me more powerful than you. And right now, that's all that matters. My phone buzzed with a text from Lenny. Package delivered to penthouse. Gavin's not happy. The package was an eviction notice, not enforceable yet, but a clear message that his tenancy was under review, along with photographs of his extracurricular activities. 20 minutes later, Gavin called. You son of a... He caught himself. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Meet me at Bryant Park in an hour. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how you've been stalking your wife. I almost laughed. Gavin, I own the building where you live and work. I have security cameras in every hallway, elevator, and common area. If anyone's been doing anything worth talking about, it's probably you. Silence. 1 hour, he repeated, then hung up. I called Lenny. How quickly can you get me copies of all the surveillance footage from Gavin's floor over the past month? Already burned to DVD. Your father taught me to be prepared? Bryant Park was crowded with lunch-hour office workers. Gavin sat on a bench near the fountain, looking like he'd aged 5 years since yesterday. His usual confidence had been replaced by something approaching panic. Rowan. He stood as I approached. Look, we need to work this out like adults. I'm listening. Lana and I, we didn't plan for this to happen. But we're in love. Real love. You have to understand. What I understand is that you've been cheating on her with at least 3 other women while she's been planning your future together. His face went white. Those were mistakes. Before Lana and I got serious. Last Tuesday was before you got serious? I pulled out my phone, showed him a photo Lenny had captured. Because this looks pretty recent. The image showed Gavin entering his penthouse with a blonde woman who definitely wasn't Lana. You can't use those. That's invasion of privacy. It's security footage from my building. Perfectly legal. I put the phone away. Here's what's going to happen, Gavin. You're going to tell Lana the truth about your other girlfriends. Then you're going to find a new place to live. Your lease won't be renewed. You can't do that. I absolutely can. I'm the building owner. He stood up, getting in my face. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to hit me. Instead, he stepped back, his hands shaking. This isn't over. Yes, I said quietly. It is. But as I walked away, I realized Gavin was right about one thing. This was far from over. It was just getting started. Lana's social media campaign began that evening. Suddenly, my face was all over Instagram and TikTok. labeled as psycho ex-husband and stalker janitor. The post painted me as an unhinged man who couldn't accept rejection, using my fake inheritance story to harass his innocent wife and her new boyfriend. The narrative was compelling. Poor Lana, trapped in a marriage to a delusional man who thought he owned buildings and could destroy restaurants out of spite. The video showed her crying, talking about how scared she was, how I'd completely changed since she'd asked for a divorce. Within 24 hours, the hashtag #ShockedAJanitorStalker was trending locally. I was sitting in my building's management office, watching the social media storm unfold, when Lenny knocked on the door. "You seeing this garbage?" He gestured at his phone screen. "Hard to miss? Want me to put out the real story? I've got documentation proving everything, the building ownership, the restaurant violations, Gavin's cheating." "Not yet." I closed my laptop. Let them think they're winning. Why? Because overconfident people make mistakes. As if on cue, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Rowan Carrick?" "Speaking." "This is Janet Walsh from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about the allegations your wife has made on social media." I almost said no. Then I had a better idea. "I'd be happy to tell my side of the story." 2 hours later, I was sitting in a television studio across from Janet Walsh, a veteran reporter known for her tough interviews. She'd clearly done her homework. "Mr. Carrick, your wife claims you've been stalking her since she asked for a divorce. She says you used a fictional inheritance story to harass local businesses and her friends. What's your response?" "Janet, I understand why this story seems compelling. Rejected husband goes crazy, starts making up stories about secret wealth. It's a great narrative." I pulled out a folder. "Unfortunately for my wife, it's completely false." I handed Janet a copy of the building deed, the trust documents, and my father's letter. "These are the property records for 847 Madison Avenue. As you can see, I've been the legal owner for 3 years, though I only learned about it recently." Janet studied the documents. "These appear to be legitimate." "They are. You can verify them with the city records office." I leaned forward. "Janet, I spent 3 years cleaning that building, being treated like I was invisible by people like my wife and her friends. I never told anyone about the inheritance because I didn't know about it." "Why didn't your father tell you?" "He wanted me to understand what it felt like to be looked down on, to be dismissed as unimportant." I smiled sadly. "Mission accomplished." "What about the restaurant closure? Your wife says you fabricated health code violations." "The health department found 17 separate violations during their inspection. Rat droppings, improper food storage, unlicensed alcohol service. I have the full report here." I handed her another document. "The restaurant was 3 months behind on rent. As the building owner, I had every right to file a complaint." "So you're saying your wife's allegations are false?" "I'm saying my wife is embarrassed that she left a janitor for a hedge fund manager, only to discover the janitor was worth more than her boyfriend." I paused. "And speaking of her boyfriend," I pulled out my phone, showed Janet the surveillance photos of Gavin with other women. "These were taken over the past month. While my wife was planning their future together, Mr. Wolf was entertaining other guests in his penthouse." Janet's eyes widened. "Do you have permission to use these images?" "They're security footage from my building. Perfectly legal." The interview aired that evening. Within an hour, Taziak Janitor Stalker had been replaced by Jauk Janitor Millionaire. The narrative flipped completely. My phone started ringing immediately. "Lana." "You bastard. How could you do this to me?" "Do what? Tell the truth?" "You made me look like a fool." "Lana, you made yourself look like a fool when you decided to humiliate me in public." I kept my voice calm. I just made sure people knew the whole story. "Those photos of Gavin are evidence that your boyfriend has been cheating on you the entire time you've been together." Silence. Then quietly, "I know about the other women." That surprised me. "You know?" "I've always known. I thought once we were married, he'd change." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Lana, you left me for a man you knew was a cheater because you thought he had more money than me. Now you've discovered I'm worth more than both of you combined, and he's still cheating on you." I sighed. "What exactly did you think was going to happen?" "I thought you'd fight for me." "I did fight for you, for 8 years. You just never noticed because I was too far beneath you to matter." She hung up. Lenny appeared in my doorway. "Boss, we might have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Gavin's been making calls, trying to dig up dirt on you, your father, the building acquisition. He's hired a private investigator." I leaned back in my chair. Let him dig. Dad's business was legitimate. That's not what I'm worried about. Lenny's expression was grim. Word is, he's getting desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. As if to prove his point, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won? This isn't over, not by a long shot. I showed the message to Lenny. Gavin? Has to be. I deleted the message. What's the worst he can do? He's a hedge fund manager, not a criminal. But even as I said it, I realized I might be underestimating just how far a desperate man might go to protect his pride. The private investigator Gavin hired was good. I'll give him that. Within a week, he'd uncovered details about my father's business dealings that I'd never known myself. Dad had built his fortune through a combination of smart real estate investments and what the investigator called questionable partnerships. With city officials in the 1990s. Nothing illegal, but enough gray area to make for embarrassing headlines. Janitor millionaires' dirty money ran across the front page of the New York Post. The article painted my father as a corrupt businessman who'd bought influence and bent rules to build his empire. I was reading the story over coffee when Lenny burst into my office. Boss, we've got bigger problems than bad press. What now? Gavin filed a lawsuit. He's claiming your father's acquisition of this building was fraudulent, that it should be reversed, and that current ownership is illegitimate. I set down my coffee. On what grounds? Says your father bribed city officials to get the zoning approvals needed for the purchase. Lenny handed me a legal document. He's demanding a full investigation of the transaction. I scanned the lawsuit. It was professionally written and detailed enough to cause serious problems, even if it was ultimately unsuccessful. How long could this tie up the building? Months, maybe years. And if he can prove any irregularities, I could lose everything. It's possible. I called my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Rebecca Torres who specialized in real estate litigation. She reviewed Gavin's lawsuit and delivered the bad news. He's got enough circumstantial evidence to make this expensive and time-consuming, she said. Even if we win, it'll cost hundreds of thousands in legal fees and tie up your assets for months. What are my options? Fight it in court, or... She paused. Find leverage to make him drop the suit. What kind of leverage? The kind I can't help you find. After Rebecca left, I sat alone in my office, staring out at the city skyline. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt like I might actually lose. My phone rang. Lana. Rowan, we need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Meet me at the Starbucks on 42nd Street. Why would I do that? Because I have information about Gavin's lawsuit that you need to hear. An hour later, I was sitting across from my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, in a crowded coffee shop. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. He's losing it, she said without preamble. Gavin? The lawsuit, the media attention, the photos of him with other women, it's destroying his business. His clients are pulling out, his partners are distancing themselves. She stirred her latte nervously. He blames you for everything. Good. No, not good. Rowan, he's talking about doing something drastic. Like what? I don't know exactly. But yesterday he was on the phone with someone talking about permanent solutions and making problems disappear. She looked scared. I think he might try to hurt you. I studied her face, looking for signs that this was another manipulation, but her fear seemed genuine. Why are you warning me? Because despite everything, I don't want you to get hurt. She reached across the table, touched my hand. And because I made a mistake, a huge mistake. Lana, let me finish. I thought Gavin represented everything I wanted. Money, status, security. But he's not a good man, Rowan. You are. I pulled my hand away. You're scared because your boyfriend is falling apart, and now you want to come crawling back. That's not... She stopped. Okay, maybe it is, but that doesn't make it less true. What exactly do you want from me? I want to help you stop him, and I want to try to fix what I broke. I stood up. Lana, you didn't break something that can be fixed. You revealed something that was never real. I looked down at her. But if you really want to help, find out what Gavin is planning. And then what? Then we finish this. That evening, Lenny and I reviewed security footage from the past week, looking for any sign that Gavin might be planning something dangerous. What we found was worse than I'd expected. There, Lenny pointed at a monitor. Tuesday night, 11 p.m. On screen, Gavin was entering the building's service entrance with two men I didn't recognize. They spent 20 minutes in the basement, near the building's electrical and HVAC systems. What were they doing down there? Nothing good. Lenny switched to another camera angle. Look at this. The footage showed one of the men taking photographs of the building's infrastructure: power lines, water mains, structural supports. He's planning sabotage, I said. Looks like it. Probably figures if he can't get the building legally, he'll make it worthless. My phone buzzed with a text from Lana. Meeting tomorrow night, his penthouse, 8 p.m. He's planning something big. I showed the message to Lenny. Could be a trap. Could be, but it's also our best chance to stop whatever he's planning. What do you want to do? I looked back at the security monitors, at my building, at everything my father had built and left for me to protect. We're going to crash his party. The thunderstorm hit Manhattan at 7:30 p.m., turning the city into a maze of flashing lightning and sheets of rain. Perfect cover for what I had planned. Lenny and I took the service elevator to the 39th floor, one level below Gavin's penthouse. Through the building's security system, we could monitor everyone in his apartment. Gavin, Lana, and the two men from the basement footage, plus a third person I didn't recognize. Audio's working, Lenny whispered, adjusting his headset. Through the surveillance feed, we could hear Gavin's voice clearly. The plan is simple. Tomorrow night, during the storm, we cut the power to the lower floors. Make it look like an electrical failure caused by the weather. What about the security system? One of his associates asked. Rowan's so paranoid, he'll come running to check on his precious building. That's when we corner him. And then? Then we convince him to sign over ownership. Transfer everything to an offshore company I control. What if he refuses? Gavin's laugh was cold. He won't refuse, not when he realizes what happens to people who don't cooperate. I looked at Lenny. Are you getting this recorded? Every word. Good, because we're about to give them a show they'll never forget. I activated the building's emergency systems, not enough to cause real damage, but sufficient to create chaos. Lights flickered throughout the upper floors. The elevators stopped working. Emergency alarms began sounding. What the hell? Gavin's voice came through the speakers. Must be the storm, one of his men said. No, this is him. He knows we're here. Gavin sounded panicked. Change of plans. We do this now. Through the security cameras, I watched them leave the penthouse and head for the stairwell. They were coming down to find me. Boss, Lenny said, maybe we should call the police. Not yet. I want them to incriminate themselves completely. I positioned myself in the building's main lobby, where multiple camera angles would capture everything. When Gavin and his men emerged from the stairwell, they found me waiting calmly by the reception desk. Hello, Gavin. Gentlemen? I nodded to his associates. I understand you wanted to see me. Rowan. Gavin tried to compose himself, but his hands were shaking. We need to talk. I'm listening. This building, your father's legacy, it's built on corruption. Bribes, illegal deals, stolen opportunities. He stepped closer. I'm prepared to expose everything unless you transfer ownership to me. Interesting proposal, and if I refuse? One of his men, a thick-set guy with red eyes, cracked his knuckles. Then we make you an offer you can't refuse. I almost laughed. Did you just quote The Godfather? Really? This isn't a joke, Gavin snapped. Sign the papers or what? You'll hurt me? I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. Gavin, I've been recording this entire conversation. Your threats, your plans to sabotage my building, your conspiracy to commit extortion, it's all documented. His face went white. You can't. I can. And I have. I looked at his associates. Gentlemen, I'd suggest you leave now, before this gets worse for you. The thick-set man reached inside his jacket, but before he could pull out whatever he was reaching for, Lenny appeared behind them with 3 security guards. I wouldn't, Lenny said quietly. The man's hand froze. Smart choice. I walked over to Gavin, who looked like he was about to collapse. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drop your lawsuit. You're going to move out of my building, and you're going to disappear from my life and my wife's life. And if I don't? Then I release the recordings to the police, the media, and your remaining clients. I smiled. Your choice. You bastard! Gavin lunged at me, but I stepped aside easily. He stumbled, fell to his knees on the marble floor. Careful, I said. You're kneeling on my property. The elevator doors opened, and Lana stepped out. She looked around at the scene. Gavin on his knees, his associates surrounded by security, me standing over all of them like some kind of avenging angel. It's over, she said quietly. Yes, I agreed. It is. Gavin struggled to his feet, his expensive suit rumpled and torn. This isn't finished, Rowan. I'll find another way. No, you won't. I handed him an envelope. That's a restraining order. If you come within 100 yards of me, my building, or my wife, you'll be arrested. Your wife? Lana stepped forward. Rowan, I are still my wife until the divorce is final. I looked at her, then back at Gavin. And I've decided not to sign the papers. What? Gavin and Lana spoke simultaneously. I'm not giving her a divorce. Not yet. I smiled. Lana made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. She can stay married to the janitor who turned out to be worth $47 million, or she can fight me in court for the next 5 years while I make her life miserable. You can't do that, Gavin protested. Watch me. Security escorted Gavin and his men out of the building. The lobby fell silent except for the sound of rain against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. Lana and I stood alone, facing each other across the marble floor where our marriage had finally ended. So what happens now? She asked. Now you decide what you want more, your freedom or your dignity. I straightened my tie. Choose carefully. You only get one. I walked toward the elevator, leaving her standing in the lobby of my building, in the ruins of her perfect plan, finally understanding what it felt like to be powerless. The elevator doors closed, and I rode up to my office to watch the storm pass over the city I now owned a small piece of. Outside, lightning split the sky, and thunder rolled across Manhattan like the sound of justice finally being served.